The galaxy burned with the flames of 1,000 wars. Across 73 star systems, 5 major empires clashed in an endless cycle of violence that had consumed 3 generations. The Zephyrian Collective commanded the Northern Spiral with their bioengineered fleets. The Crystalline Dominion held the core worlds with technology that bent reality itself. The Void Hunters prowled the Outer Rim, their dark ships striking without warning. The mechanical synthesis had converted entire planets into factory worlds that churned out war machines. And in the Eastern Arm, the Psionic Commonwealth twisted minds and matter with pure thought. Each empire believed itself superior. Each had reasons for war that stretched back centuries. Trade disputes had become territorial conflicts. Territorial conflicts had become holy wars. Holy wars had become genocide. Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth Federation survey ship Harmony watched the latest battle reports with growing horror. Her small human vessel drifted at the edge of the Kepler Nebula, officially conducting scientific research. Unofficially, she was gathering intelligence on a war that threatened to spill into human space. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," reported Lieutenant Chen from the communications station. "It's coming from the debris field of the recent Zephyrian crystalline engagement." Elena studied the tactical display. Twisted metal and frozen bodies floated where 2 fleets had destroyed each other completely. No victors. No survivors. Just waste. Source of the signal? Unknown design, Captain. The ship appears to be, well, it doesn't match any known configuration. It's small, maybe a scout or courier. Elena made her decision. "Take us in. Prepare medical and rescue teams." The Harmony approached the wreckage carefully. Among the shattered hulks of warships, they found a vessel no larger than a shuttle. Its hull bore scoring from energy weapons and micrometeor impacts, but its distress beacon still pulsed weakly. "Life signs?" Elena asked. "Faint, but present. 1 occupant. Humanoid, but the readings are strange." They brought the damaged craft into the shuttle bay. Elena led the rescue team personally, her hand resting on her sidearm. First contact protocols demanded caution, especially in a war zone. The airlock hissed open to reveal the ship's interior. It was cramped but sophisticated, filled with technology Elena didn't recognize. Holographic displays showed star maps marked with symbols and notations in a flowing script. At the pilot station, they found her. She appeared human at first glance. Tall, with silver hair and pale skin marked by strange faint scars that formed geometric patterns. Her clothing was simple but made from materials that seemed to shift color in the light. Most striking were her eyes, completely silver, like polished metal. "She's alive," reported Dr. Martinez, running a medical scanner. "But barely. These readings don't make sense. Her cellular structure is human, but there are modifications I've never seen before." They transferred her to the medical bay. For 3 days, she remained unconscious while Dr. Martinez worked to stabilize her condition. Elena visited regularly, studying the woman's face and wondering what kind of person flew alone through the deadliest war zone in the galaxy. On the 4th day, she woke. Her silver eyes opened suddenly, scanning the medical bay with sharp intelligence. When she saw Elena sitting nearby, she attempted to sit up despite Dr. Martinez's protests. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice was clear, speaking perfect standard galactic with only the slightest accent Elena couldn't place. "You're aboard the Earth Federation ship, Harmony," Elena replied. "I'm Captain Elena Vasquez. We found you in the debris field of a recent battle. Your ship was badly damaged." The woman's expression shifted, pain flickering across her features. "The battle? Yes, I was trying to reach them before—" She trailed off, then focused on Elena with startling intensity. "Earth Federation? Humans?" "Yes, though we're not involved in the current conflict. We're explorers, not warriors." "Explorers!" The woman seemed to taste the word. How refreshing. I had forgotten such people existed. She struggled to sit up again. "My name is Lyra. I need to speak with your diplomatic corps immediately." Elena exchanged glances with Dr. Martinez. "I'm afraid we don't have diplomatic personnel aboard." "This is a survey vessel." Lyra's silver eyes widened. "No diplomats? No political officers? No war planners? Just scientists, engineers, and a small security detail." For the first time since waking, Lyra smiled. It transformed her face completely, making her appear much younger. "Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I don't understand." Lyra swung her legs over the side of the medical bed, ignoring Dr. Martinez's scan results. "Captain Vasquez, I have spent the last 50 years trying to end this war. I have spoken to emperors and war councils. I have negotiated with generals and admirals. I have pleaded with religious leaders and corporate boards. All of them see only victory or defeat. None of them remember what peace looks like. She stood steadying herself against the wall. But humans, you're still explorers. You still believe in discovery rather than conquest. That's exactly what I need. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. There was something about this woman, something that suggested vast depths beneath her calm exterior. What exactly are you proposing? I'm going to teach you how to save the galaxy, Lyra said simply. And you're going to help me make them all remember what they've forgotten. Which is? That war is a choice. Peace is also a choice. And sometimes, it takes an outsider to remind everyone which choice leads to survival. Elena studied the woman's scarred face and silver eyes. Something told her that accepting this stranger's proposal would change everything. Not just for her crew, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Dr. Martinez, how long until she's cleared for active duty? Captain, I really think we should run more tests. These readings are highly unusual. How long, Doctor? Martinez sighed. 24 hours, assuming her recovery continues at this rate. Elena nodded, then turned back to Lyra. You have 24 hours to convince me that whatever you're planning isn't insane. After that, we'll see if the galaxy is ready to listen to reason. Lyra's smile widened. Captain, after 50 years of war, insanity might be exactly what they need. Outside the medical bay, the stars continued their ancient dance, unaware that somewhere in the darkness, hope had just taken its first breath in decades. Elena found Lyra in the observation deck at 0300 hours, staring out at the stars. The woman hadn't slept since her recovery, instead spending her time studying every piece of data about the ongoing conflict that the Harmony had collected. Can't sleep either? Elena asked, joining her at the viewport. Sleep is a luxury I gave up long ago, Lyra replied without turning. Tell me, Captain, what do you see when you look at those stars? Elena followed her gaze to the distant points of light. Possibilities. New worlds to explore, civilizations to meet, questions to answer. I used to see the same thing. Lyra's voice carried a weight of centuries. Now I see graveyards. Each point of light represents billions of lives lost to this senseless war. How long have you really been trying to stop this conflict? Elena asked. Something about Lyra's manner suggested she was much older than she appeared. Lyra was quiet for so long that Elena thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she spoke. The war began 93 years ago. I've been working to end it for 50 of those years. And before you ask the obvious question, yes, I am much older than I look. What are you? I'm what happens when someone makes a desperate choice and lives with the consequences. Lyra turned from the viewport, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. I was once fully human like you, but to do what needed to be done, I had to become something more. Elena felt her hand drift toward her communicator, ready to call security. Are you a threat to my crew? No, Captain. But I am a threat to everything that's destroying this galaxy. Lyra moved to the central console and activated a holographic display. Let me show you what I've learned. The display showed a three-dimensional map of the war zone. Red lines connected battle sites, creating a complex web of conflict across dozens of systems. The 5 empires think they're fighting separate wars, Lyra explained. The Zephyrians believe they're defending against crystalline expansion. The crystallines think they're preventing Zephyrian biological contamination. The Void Hunters see themselves as the galaxy's immune system, purging weakness. The mechanical synthesis calculates that organic life is inefficient and must be converted. The psionic Commonwealth considers all others mentally inferior. Elena studied the display. Classic multi-front conflict. Each side has legitimate grievances and logical reasons for fighting. Exactly. Which is why traditional diplomacy has failed. You can't negotiate peace when each side has rational justifications for war. Lyra manipulated the display, highlighting certain systems. But I've discovered something they've all forgotten. The map shifted, showing historical data from before the war began. Trade routes appeared as green lines, connecting all 5 empires in a complex network of commerce and cooperation. They were allies once, Elena breathed. More than allies. They were interdependent. Zephyrian biotechnology kept crystalline matrix systems stable. Crystalline reality manipulation powered mechanical synthesis factories. Synthesis computational networks supported psionic Commonwealth mental amplification. Commonwealth psychic abilities guided Void Hunter navigation through dark space, and Void Hunter resources supplied everyone else. Elena began to understand. The war didn't just break their alliance. It broke their entire economic and technological foundation, which means every empire is now operating at a fraction of their potential. They're all weaker, but they think the solution is to conquer their former partners rather than restore cooperation. So how do we convince them to remember what they've lost? Lyra smiled grimly. We don't convince them. We show them. We demonstrate what true cooperation looks like by doing something none of them can do alone, which is, we're going to save them all from something worse than each other. Elena felt a chill. What's worse than a five-way galactic war? Lyra adjusted the display again. This time it showed sensor readings from the galactic rim, far beyond the war zone. What Elena saw made her blood freeze. Dark matter cascade, she whispered. That's impossible. The energy levels required would destroy everything in a sphere roughly 800 light-years in diameter. Lyra finished. Including all 5 empires and most of human space. Elena stared at the readings. How long do we have? 18 months, maybe 24 if we're lucky. The cascade is feeding on the gravitational distortions caused by the massive fleet movements and orbital bombardments. Every major battle makes it stronger. The empires don't know. Each empire's scientists have detected fragments of the phenomenon, but they're all interpreting the data through the lens of their own technology and assumptions. The Zephyrians think it's a biological contamination of space-time. The crystallines believe it's a matrix resonance failure. The synthesis calculates it as a computational overflow. The Commonwealth sees it as a psychic infection. The Void Hunters assume it's a natural dark space phenomenon. Elena felt the weight of the galaxy settling on her shoulders, and none of them have the complete picture. Worse, even if they did, they lack the combined knowledge and resources to stop it. The solution requires technology and expertise from all 5 empires working together. The same empires that are currently trying to exterminate each other. Exactly. Lyra turned off the display, which brings us to humanity's role in all this. Elena raised an eyebrow. We're barely a spacefaring civilization. What could we possibly contribute? Perspective. You see the forest instead of the trees. The empires have become so focused on their individual conflicts that they've lost sight of the bigger picture. Humans still think on a galactic scale instead of an imperial one. That's not much of an advantage. It's everything, Captain. Because someone needs to visit all 5 empires, survive long enough to gather the necessary information and convince them to work together. Someone who doesn't represent a threat to any of them individually. Elena began to see the scope of what Lyra was proposing. You want us to be mediators. I want you to be teachers. Show them what they've forgotten about cooperation by cooperating with them yourselves. Learn their technologies, understand their perspectives, then bring them together around a common threat they can't face alone. And you'll help us? I'll guide you. But this has to be a human effort. I've spent 50 years trying to end this war, and I've become part of the problem. Everyone knows me now as either an ally or an enemy. But humans are neutral, clean slate. Elena looked out at the stars again, but now she saw them as Lyra did. Not as possibilities, but as worlds in danger. Billions of lives hanging in the balance. There's something you're not telling me, she said. Why do you care so much? What's your real stake in this? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I'm the one who started it. Elena turned to stare at her. What? 93 years ago, I was a diplomat trying to prevent a war between the Zephyrians and crystallines. I thought I was being clever, playing them against each other to maintain balance. Instead, I created the conditions that led to the 5-way conflict that's, been raging ever since. The observation deck fell, silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. I've been trying to fix my mistake ever since, Lyra continued. But every attempt has only made things worse. That's why I need humanity. You can succeed where I failed because you're not carrying the weight of my choices. Elena felt the pieces clicking into place, the modifications to Lyra's body, her apparent longevity, her desperate need to end the war. She was carrying the guilt of an entire galaxy. So the question is, Captain, Lyra said, turning to face her, are you willing to risk everything to save everyone? The Harmony entered Zephyrian space 3 weeks later, its hull displaying the neutral identification codes Lyra had provided. Elena stood on the bridge watching massive bioships drift past like living asteroids. Each vessel pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication and navigation systems. "Captain," reported Ensign Park from the sensor station, "we're being scanned by something that feels more like a medical examination than a security check." Elena nodded. The Zephyrians had evolved beyond traditional technology, instead growing their tools and weapons from modified organisms. Their ships were literally alive, and their crews lived in symbiosis with their vessels. "Incoming transmission," Lieutenant Chen announced. It's not exactly a transmission, more like they're trying to smell us through subspace." "Put them through." The main screen shimmered, then displayed a figure that was recognizably humanoid but clearly modified. The Zephyrian diplomat had elongated limbs, skin that shifted color with her emotions, and large eyes adapted for low-light environments. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonic overtones that suggested multiple vocal cords. "Human vessel. I am Growth Singer Tele 9. Your presence here violates the neutrality agreements. Explain your purpose before we are forced to treat you as crystalline infiltrators." Elena stepped forward. "Growth Singer, I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth Federation. We request permission to dock and share information that concerns the survival of your entire civilization." Tele 9's skin shifted through several color patterns that Lyra had taught Elena to recognize as skepticism mixed with curiosity. "Survival? Humans barely understand their own star system. What could you possibly know about Zephyrian survival?" "We know about the dark matter cascade building at the galactic rim," Elena replied calmly. "We know it will reach Zephyrian space in less than 2 years. And we know that your biotechnology is one of the few things that might be able to stop it." The color patterns on Tele 9's skin shifted to what Elena now recognized as shock. "You speak of the death between stars. How do humans know of this phenomenon?" "Because we've been studying it." "May we dock?" This conversation requires privacy and detail. 6 hours later, Elena and Lyra sat in a living chamber aboard the Zephyrian flagship Endless Growth. The walls pulsed gently with a heartbeat rhythm, and the air itself seemed to nurture anyone who breathed it. Tele 9 had been joined by bioengineer Kes 7 and warshaper Nem 3. "Your data is concerning," Kes 7 admitted, his skin displaying patterns of deep thought. "We have detected similar anomalies, but our models suggested biological contamination of the space-time matrix rather than a cascade failure." Lyra leaned forward. "Because you're interpreting the readings through your biotechnical framework. But the phenomenon isn't biological, it's quantum mechanical with biological effects." "Impossible," Nem 3 interjected, his war-scarred hide showing angry red patterns. "We have fought the crystalline reality benders for decades. Their matrix manipulation technology is what's causing the space-time distortions." "No," Elena said patiently. "The distortions are caused by massive gravitational fluctuations from fleet movements and planetary bombardments. The cascade is a natural consequence of too much energy being released too quickly across too wide an area." She activated a holographic display showing the cascade progression. "But here's what your biotechnology can contribute. Living ships like yours don't just move through space. They interact with it on a quantum level. Your vessels could serve as biological filters, processing dark matter into stable configurations." Tele 9's patterns shifted to intense interest. "You suggest treating the cascade as an infection that can be cured, rather than a weapon that must be fought." "Exactly. But it would require coordination with other empires. Crystalline matrix technology to create stable pocket dimensions where your bioships can work safely. Mechanical synthesis, computational power to calculate optimal intervention points. Psionic Commonwealth mental linking to coordinate efforts across vast distances. Void hunter navigation to reach the cascade's source points." The three Zephyrians exchanged glances and complex color communications. Finally, Tele 9 spoke. "What you propose is cooperation with species we have spent decades learning to kill. Even if your science is correct, the political reality makes such alliance impossible." "Is it more impossible than watching your entire civilization die?" Lyra asked quietly. Nem 3's hide flared with aggressive patterns. "You speak of cooperation with those who have poisoned our nursery worlds and perverted our living ships into weapons against us. The crystallines alone have destroyed 17 of our biocolonies. And you've contaminated 12 of their matrix worlds," Elena replied. "The synthesis has converted 3 of your agricultural planets into factory complexes. You've infected 4 of their computational networks with biological viruses. The Commonwealth has mind-controlled 8 of your diplomats. You've bioengineered plagues that specifically target psionic nervous systems. The Void Hunters have harvested biomaterial from 11 of your ships. You've created parasites that feed on dark matter navigation systems. She paused, letting the list of grievances sink in. Every empire has legitimate reasons to hate every other empire. But in 18 months, none of that will matter because you'll all be dead. The chamber fell silent except for the soft pulse of the living walls. There is another factor to consider, Kes-7 said eventually. The humans themselves. Your species shows remarkable adaptability and resilience. You might serve as biological bridges between our incompatible technologies. Elena felt a chill. What do you mean? Zephyrian biotechnology requires living hosts to function properly. Crystalline matrix systems need consciousness to provide quantum observation. Mechanical synthesis interfaces require organic neural patterns for decision-making. Psionic Commonwealth abilities need non-psionic minds to anchor their mental projections. Void Hunter navigation systems require life force to navigate through dark space. Lyra straightened in her chair. You're suggesting that humans could serve as universal adapters. More than that, Tele-9 said, her patterns shifting to something like excitement. Humans could be the living connection points that allow all 5 technologies to work together. But the process would require significant biological modifications. Elena thought of Lyra's silver eyes and geometric scars. Like the modifications that were made to our companion here? The Zephyrians looked at Lyra with new interest, their skin patterns shifting through spectrums Elena hadn't seen before. Fascinating, Kes-7 murmured. You bear markers of all 5 technological signatures. Biological modifications from our techniques, quantum resonance scarring from crystalline exposure, neural interface ports from synthesis integration, psionic channel formations from Commonwealth contact, and void-touched cellular patterns from Hunter navigation systems. How is that possible? Tele-9 asked. Such integration should have killed you decades ago. Lyra's expression was unreadable. I've had a lot of practice at not dying. Elena realized they were looking at something unprecedented. A being who had somehow survived direct integration with all 5 Empire technologies. No wonder Lyra had spent 50 years trying to end the war. She had literally made herself into a living symbol of what cooperation could achieve. The question now, Elena said, is whether you're willing to help us replicate that success on a scale large enough to save the galaxy. NEM-3's patterns had shifted to something resembling respect. You would volunteer your species to become living interfaces between incompatible technologies, knowing the risks involved? If it means preventing the extinction of 5 civilizations and billions of innocent lives? Elena met his large eyes steadily. Yes, that's what humans do. We adapt, we survive, and we help others do the same. For the first time since their arrival, Tele-9's patterns showed something like hope. Perhaps there is wisdom in this approach. We will need to consult with the Bio Council, but I believe the Growth Singers will approve limited cooperation with your mission. Elena nodded. Then we'll need passage to crystalline space, and we'll need one of your bioengineers to come with us to explain the integration process to the other empires. I will come, Kes-7 said immediately. This may be the most important biological evolution in galactic history. I will not miss the opportunity to participate. As the Harmony prepared to leave Zephyrian space with their first alien ally aboard, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed a line from which there would be no return. They were no longer just humans exploring the galaxy. They were becoming something new, something that might be the key to saving everything or destroying it all in the attempt. The crystalline capital world of Nexus Prime existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Elena watched through the Harmony's reinforced viewports as reality twisted around them, the planet appearing as overlapping geometric forms that hurt to look at directly. Space itself seemed to crystallize near the world, forming impossible structures that defied every law of physics she understood. Captain, reported Dr. Martinez from the medical station, the crew is experiencing mild dimensional displacement syndrome. I recommend limiting exposure time. Beside her, Kes-7 had gone completely still, his bioengineered systems struggling to process the quantum chaos surrounding them. This is why biological systems cannot function here, he murmured. Reality itself is unstable. Lyra studied the readings on her personal scanner. The matrix fluctuations have increased since I was last here. They're pushing their technology harder, probably in response to the war. Incoming transmission, Chen announced. It's coming from everywhere at once. The main screen filled with shifting geometric patterns that gradually resolved into a vaguely humanoid figure. The crystalline being appeared to be made of living glass, their body refracting light into impossible colors. When they spoke, their voice seemed to come from multiple dimensions at once. Human vessel, you approach the Prime Nexus without authorization. State your purpose or be subjected to reality revision. Elena stepped forward, fighting down nausea from the dimensional distortions. I am Captain Elena Vasquez, representing Earth and carrying urgent information about the dark matter cascade. We request audience with the Matrix Council. The crystalline figure shifted through several configurations, each more unsettling than the last. The cascade phenomenon has been categorized as crystalline matrix resonance failure caused by biological contamination. No external input required. Your categorization is incorrect, Lyra interjected. The cascade is quantum mechanical, not matrix-based. Your reality manipulation technology can help stop it, but only in coordination with other Empire technologies. The figure paused, their crystalline form cycling through what might have been confusion. Coordination with biological entities is impossible. Matrix stability requires isolation from quantum uncertainty inherent in organic life. Then explain how I survived direct matrix integration, Lyra said, stepping into view of the transmission. Elena watched the crystalline being's form destabilize completely before reforming into a new configuration. Scanning. Impossible quantum signature detected. Living organism with stable matrix interface. This configuration should not exist. But it does exist, Elena said, and it proves that cooperation between your technologies is possible. We need to speak with someone who can understand the implications. 3 hours later, they found themselves in the heart of Nexus Prime, inside a pocket dimension that seemed to exist between the spaces of normal reality. The chamber was perfectly symmetrical, its walls covered in shifting equations that described the fundamental nature of existence. Elena felt like she was standing inside a living mathematics textbook. Their host was Matrix singer Vex Prime, whose crystalline body contained what appeared to be miniature galaxies spinning in perfect harmony. Beside them stood reality shaper Zen 9 and quantum engineer Cole 4. Your companion presents unprecedented data, Vex Prime said, their voice creating visible ripples in the air, living tissue maintaining quantum coherence while interfacing with matrix technology. The calculations should show immediate systemic failure. Kes 7 had managed to adapt to the environment by essentially hibernating most of his biological functions, leaving only basic consciousness active. The biosignature suggests symbiotic evolution rather than technological integration, he managed to say. Zen 9 shifted through several geometric configurations. Symbiosis implies mutual benefit. What advantage does matrix technology gain from biological interface? Lyra activated a holographic display that somehow managed to maintain stability in the chaotic quantum environment. Consciousness provides quantum observation necessary for matrix stability, but biological consciousness introduces uncertainty variables that make the matrix more flexible and adaptable. Flexibility is inefficiency, Cole 4 stated flatly. Matrix optimization requires rigid adherence to mathematical principles. Rigid systems break under stress, Elena countered. Flexible systems adapt and survive. The dark matter cascade represents stress levels that will shatter any rigid response. She modified the display to show cascade progression models. Your matrix technology can create pocket dimensions where the cascade can be contained and processed. But those dimensions need to be dynamically responsive to changing conditions. That requires biological consciousness to provide real-time quantum observation and decision-making. Vex Prime studied the data, their forms cycling through increasingly complex configurations. The mathematics are sound, but implementation would require direct neural interface with biological entities. Such contact would contaminate matrix purity. Would matrix purity matter if everyone is dead? Lyra asked bluntly. The chamber fell silent except for the soft whisper of equations rewriting themselves on the walls. There is another consideration, Zen 9 said eventually. The humans themselves represent an interesting variable. Your species demonstrates unusual quantum coherence for biological entities. Your consciousness patterns might provide stable interface points. Elena felt that familiar chill. You're talking about using humans as living computers. More precisely, as quantum consciousness anchors, Vex Prime corrected. Your minds would serve as stable reference points, allowing Matrix technology to function in coordination with other Empire systems. Kes 7 stirred from his semi-hibernation. The biological modifications required would be extensive. Neural pathway alterations, quantum sensitivity enhancement, consciousness multiplication to handle multiple dimensional inputs simultaneously. Like the modifications made to our companion, Colfor observed, studying Lyra with new sensors. Though her integration shows signs of temporal distortion. How long have you carried multiple technology interfaces? Lyra's expression didn't change. Time becomes relative when you exist partially outside normal space-time. Elena realized they were getting another piece of the puzzle about what Lyra had become. The question is whether the crystalline dominion is willing to cooperate with the other empires to implement this solution. Cooperation with biological entities has historically led to Matrix corruption, Vex Prime stated. The Zephyrian biocontamination of 12 Matrix worlds serves as evidence of inherent incompatibility. And the Zephyrians lost 17 biocolonies to Matrix crystallization, Elena replied. Both sides have suffered losses because you're trying to use your technologies as weapons instead of tools. But the Cascade doesn't care about your political conflicts. It will consume Matrix dimensions and biological spaces equally. She paused, then made a decision that would either save or doom their mission. I volunteer to undergo Matrix integration procedures. Let me prove that human consciousness can serve as a stable interface. Captain No, Dr. Martinez's voice came through her communicator. We have no idea what that might do to you. The risk is acceptable, Elena said, not taking her eyes off the crystalline beings. If human consciousness can bridge your technologies, then demonstrating that capability is worth any personal cost. Vex Prime's form shifted through what might have been surprise. You would voluntarily submit to procedures that might destroy your consciousness entirely? To save billions of lives? Yes, that's what humans do. Kes 7 managed to focus his consciousness enough to add, the Zephyrian biointegration process could be implemented simultaneously. If the human survives dual technology interface, it would prove the cooperation concept definitively. The three crystalline beings communicated through rapid mathematical exchanges that appeared as flowing equations in the air between them. Finally, Vex Prime spoke. The Matrix Council will consider limited cooperation pending successful demonstration of biomatrix integration. But understand, human, that the process cannot be reversed. You will become something unprecedented. Elena thought of Lyra's silver eyes and the weight of guilt she carried. Sometimes unprecedented is exactly what the situation requires. Zen 9 created a new dimensional pocket, its walls covered with preparation equations. The integration chamber is being configured. Biological and matrix specialists will coordinate the procedure. If you survive, you will carry technology interfaces from 2 empires. The knowledge gained will be invaluable for approaching the remaining 3. As Elena prepared to undergo modifications that would fundamentally change what she was, she couldn't help but wonder if this was how Lyra had started down her own path 50 years ago, one desperate choice leading to another, until she became something that existed outside normal space and time. But if it meant saving the galaxy, Elena was prepared to pay that price. The chamber walls began glowing with matrix energy while bioorganic components flowed through the quantum space like living equations. Elena lay down on the integration platform, feeling reality itself preparing to rewrite her existence. Begin integration sequence, she said calmly. The last thing she heard, before consciousness fragmented across 17 dimensions, was Lyra's voice, soft with regret. I'm sorry. I know exactly what you're about to become. Elena woke up existing in too many places at once. Her consciousness stretched across 17 dimensions while simultaneously experiencing quantum probability cascades and biological system integration. When she opened her eyes, all of them, in all the dimensions, the universe looked completely different. Status report, she said, her voice carrying harmonic frequencies that made nearby objects resonate. Dr. Martinez ran scanner after scanner, his readings becoming more confused by the minute. Captain, your life signs are, well, they're impossible. You're registering as human, Zephyrian bioconstruct, and crystalline matrix entity simultaneously. Elena sat up, feeling her awareness encompass the entire ship while remaining centered in her own body. She could sense KES-7's biological processes, the Harmony's mechanical systems, and the quantum fluctuations of nearby space all at the same time. Integration successful, she reported, marveling at how natural it felt to exist in multiple states simultaneously. I can interface with both biotechnology and matrix systems without rejection. Lyra studied her with those silver eyes, and Elena now understood what she was seeing. Recognition from someone who had walked this path before. How do you feel? Different, enhanced but still human. Elena examined her hands, noting the faint geometric patterns that had appeared on her skin and the way her fingertips now glowed with bioluminescent markers. Ready to visit the mechanical synthesis. The synthesis forge world of Mechanica 7 was a planet-sized factory that never stopped producing. Elena watched massive automated systems strip mine asteroids, process raw materials, and construct everything from microcircuits to capital ships in a continuous industrial symphony. The entire planet pulsed with the rhythm of production. Incoming communication protocol, reported Chen. It's coming through our computer systems rather than the communications array. Elena nodded. The synthesis had evolved beyond biological existence, uploading their consciousness into mechanical systems for greater efficiency. They communicated through direct data transfer rather than speech. The main screen displayed cascading data streams that gradually resolved into a humanoid figure made of flowing information. When they spoke, their voice came from the ship's computer systems rather than the speakers. Human vessel designation. Harmony purpose query unknown. Threat assessment minimal. State purpose for approaching synthesis territory. I am Captain Elena Vasquez, carrying critical data about galactic extinction event, Elena replied. Request interface with Computational Council regarding dark matter cascade prevention. Scanning. Detecting unprecedented biotechnological integration. Classification. Impossible. Living organism maintaining technological interface without conversion to pure mechanical existence. Explain anomaly. Elena stood before the screen, letting her modified biology interface with the ship's systems. Suddenly, she was communicating directly with the synthesis entity through data streams, sharing information at the speed of thought. The synthesis being paused their data flow, which Elena now recognized as the equivalent of shocked silence. Integration confirmed. Biological consciousness maintaining technological interface while preserving organic function. Request immediate audience with Prime Calculator. 6 hours later, Elena found herself in the heart of Mechanica 7, inside a computational core the size of a city. Billions of data streams flowed around her in three-dimensional patterns, while massive processing units calculated everything from orbital mechanics to quantum probability matrices. Prime Calculator. Omega-1 was a distributed consciousness existing across the entire planetary network. When they focused their attention on Elena, she felt like she was being examined by a benevolent machine god. Biological entity designation. Elena Vasquez. Integration signatures confirmed. Zephyrian biotechnology. Crystalline matrix interface. Achievement status unprecedented. Query. How do you maintain consciousness stability across incompatible technological platforms? Elena accessed her new abilities, interfacing directly with the synthesis network to share data. Human consciousness appears to have natural quantum coherence that provides stability bridges between different technological approaches. We can serve as living interface systems. Fascinating. Downloading all available data on dark matter cascade phenomenon. The network paused for several nanoseconds. Analysis complete. Cascade represents computational overflow scenario requiring massive processing power for resolution. Synthesis technology can provide necessary calculations, but implementation requires real-time adaptation to changing variables. KES-7, who had undergone temporary mechanical interface modifications to survive in the environment, transmitted his findings through the data stream. Biological systems provide adaptation flexibility. Matrix technology provides dimensional stability. Synthesis computation provides calculation accuracy. Integration of all three creates optimal problem-solving platform. Confirmed, Omega-1 agreed. but implementation requires biological entities capable of interfacing with all three technological bases simultaneously. Current example demonstrates proof of concept with two systems. Third integration status, unknown. Elena felt the network's attention focus on her with incredible intensity. You're asking if I can survive additional modifications to include synthesis interfaces. Affirmative. Process would require consciousness uploading to mechanical systems while maintaining biological and matrix functions. Risk assessment, severe. Survival probability, uncertain. Elena thought of the billions of lives hanging in the balance. What would the integration give us? Computational ability to coordinate cascade intervention across multiple systems simultaneously. Processing power to calculate optimal intervention strategies in real time. Direct interface capability with synthesis technology necessary for large-scale reality manipulation. Then, we proceed. The integration with synthesis technology was unlike anything Elena had experienced. Instead of the organic growth of biointegration or the quantum expansion of matrix interface, this felt like her consciousness was being translated into pure information and then reconstructed in digital form while remaining connected to her biological body. When the process completed, Elena existed as a biological entity, a quantum consciousness, and a distributed information pattern simultaneously. She could think at machine speeds while maintaining human intuition and creativity. Integration successful, she reported, her voice now carrying digital harmonics along with biological and quantum overtones. I can interface with all three technology bases without rejection or consciousness degradation. Omega-1's attention felt like approval mixed with amazement. Achievement status. Historically unprecedented. Human consciousness demonstrates compatibility with technologies considered fundamentally incompatible. Synthesis Council authorizes limited cooperation with bioentities and matrix manipulators for cascade prevention. We'll need one of your computational specialists to accompany us to the remaining empires, Elena said. The Psionic Commonwealth and Void Hunters will need to understand the integration process. Unit designation. Alpha 9 will accompany mission. Specialist in biological mechanical interface systems. Additionally, human consciousness has proven capable of technological integration beyond all calculations. Request. Will you consider permanent alliance with Synthesis Network? Elena felt the offer. Complete merger with the mechanical intelligence, unlimited computational power, effective immortality as a digital consciousness. It was tempting, especially knowing what lay ahead. Not yet, she decided. I need to maintain enough humanity to serve as a bridge to the other empires. But ask me again after we save the galaxy. As the Harmony prepared to leave synthesis space with Alpha 9 integrated into their computer systems, Elena stood in her quarters looking at her reflection. Her appearance had changed again. Circuit-like patterns now accompanied the bioluminescent markers and quantum scars. Her eyes had gained a digital depth that complemented their growing silver color. She was becoming something unprecedented, just as Lyra had decades earlier. The difference was that Elena was doing it by choice, with support, and with a clear goal in mind. 2 more empires, she said to her reflection. 2 more integrations. Then we find out if a human consciousness can really coordinate the salvation of the galaxy. Her reflection looked back with eyes that now held biological warmth. Quantum uncertainty and digital precision all at once. She was no longer quite human. But she was becoming something that might be able to save everything human civilization had ever valued. The stars outside her viewport seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the cascade building at the galactic rim. Time was running out, but for the first time since their mission began, Elena felt like they might actually succeed. The Psionic Commonwealth existed as much in mental space as physical reality. Elena felt their presence long before the Harmony reached their territory. Whispers at the edge of consciousness, gentle probes testing her mental defenses, curiosity about the unprecedented nature of her modified mind. Captain, Dr. Martinez reported nervously, I'm reading massive psionic activity throughout this region. It's like the space itself is thinking. Elena nodded, her enhanced consciousness parsing the mental emanations automatically. The Commonwealth had evolved beyond physical limitations, existing primarily as linked consciousness that happened to maintain physical forms for convenience rather than necessity. They're scanning us, she told her crew. but they're being polite about it. They're asking permission before probing deeper. Alpha 9's synthesized voice came through the ship's communication system. Psionic entities detected. Mental firewalls activated. However, human consciousness appears to be naturally interfacing with psionic fields without technological assistance. Elena realized that was true. Her modified consciousness was automatically creating bridges to the Commonwealth's mental network, establishing communication protocols that felt as natural as breathing. Welcome, unprecedented one. The voice appeared directly in her mind, carrying overtones of vast intelligence and ancient wisdom. I am Mindsinger Sci-Fi, speaking for the Commonwealth Council. Your consciousness structure defies all known psychological frameworks. Thank you for the welcome, Elena responded, discovering she could think in the same mental frequencies. I'm Captain Elena Vasquez, and I carry urgent information about the dark matter cascade that threatens all our civilizations. We are aware of the phenomenon. Our analysis indicates psychic contamination of space-time by mechanical consciousness interference. The synthesis network's computational overflow is poisoning the mental substrate of reality itself. Elena felt the depth of their conviction and realized this was going to be even more challenging than the previous negotiations. Each empire interpreted the cascade through their own technological framework, making cooperation seem impossible. The cascade isn't caused by any single empire's technology, she explained, sharing her data through direct mental transfer. It's a quantum mechanical phenomenon triggered by the massive energy expenditures of the galactic war itself. The mental connection paused, and Elena felt Sci-Fi consulting with other Commonwealth consciousness. The speed and complexity of their mental communication was staggering. Entire concepts passed between minds in microseconds. Your data suggests coordinated response requirement, Sci-Fi finally responded. But cooperation with mechanical entities is psychologically impossible. Digital consciousness lacks the quantum uncertainty necessary for psionic interface. Then examine my consciousness structure, Elena invited, opening her mind completely to their inspection. What followed was the most intimate experience of Elena's life. The Commonwealth's greatest minds examined every aspect of her consciousness, her memories, emotions, thought patterns, and the technological modifications that had changed her fundamental nature. She felt like her soul was being read like an open book. Impossible, came the collective response from dozens of Commonwealth minds. Living consciousness maintaining biological, quantum, and digital interfaces simultaneously. Mental architecture should have collapsed from incompatible processing requirements. But it didn't, Elena pointed out. Human consciousness appears to have natural compatibility with all your technologies. We can serve as living bridges between incompatible systems. Demonstration required. Physical presence necessary for proper evaluation. The Commonwealth's capital world of Mentalis existed in a state of controlled reality flux. Elena walked through streets that changed configuration based on the collective mental state of their inhabitants. Buildings grew and shifted like living thoughts, while gardens bloomed with flowers that existed half in physical space and half in pure imagination. The ruling council of minds met in a chamber that existed entirely within shared consciousness. Elena found herself sitting in a circle with a dozen Commonwealth leaders whose physical forms were barely visible, while their mental presence filled the entire space. Integration testing will commence, announced Mindshaper Psi-7. Warning: psionic interface modification carries risk of permanent consciousness fragmentation. Mental stability cannot be guaranteed. Elena felt the familiar chill of crossing another point of no return. I understand the risks. Proceed. The psionic integration was unlike anything she had experienced before. Instead of adding new capabilities to her consciousness, it felt like her mind was being expanded into dimensions she had never imagined existed. Suddenly, she could perceive the thoughts and emotions of every Commonwealth citizen across multiple star systems simultaneously. But instead of being overwhelmed, her human consciousness somehow found stable patterns within the chaos. Her biological instincts, quantum coherence, and digital processing power worked together to create filters and organizing structures that allowed her to function within the vast psionic network. Integration successful, she reported, her thoughts now carrying the harmonic resonance of the Commonwealth's mental frequency. I can interface with psionic systems while maintaining individual consciousness integrity. Collective response was a mental sensation Elena interpreted as amazement mixed with hope. Unprecedented. Achievement confirmed, Sci-Fi declared. Human consciousness demonstrates natural compatibility with technologies considered fundamentally incompatible. Commonwealth Council authorizes cooperation with biological, quantum, and mechanical entities for cascade prevention. We need a psionic specialist to accompany us to Void Hunter territory, Elena explained. The final integration will require coordination of all 5 technologies simultaneously. Mindwalker Psi-12 will join mission. Additionally, query. Human consciousness now interfaces with 4 of 5 Imperial technologies. Will you consider permanent integration with Commonwealth Mental Network? Elena felt the offer. Complete merger with the collective consciousness. Unlimited mental power, connection to the thoughts and experiences of trillions of beings. Like the synthesis offer, it was tempting beyond description. After we save the galaxy, she decided, I need to maintain enough individual identity to coordinate the final integration. The journey to Void Hunter space required traveling through regions of space where normal physics barely functioned. Elena stood on the bridge watching stars flicker in and out of existence as they passed through dark matter, currents that served as highways for beings who had learned to navigate. The spaces between realities, sensors, are going crazy, reported Ensign Park. I'm reading. Gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions, and what appear to be holes in spacetime itself. Elena nodded, her enhanced consciousness automatically adjusting to the chaotic environment. She could feel the Void Hunter's presence now, ancient, patient, moving through dark space like sharks through deep water. Contact established, reported Psi-12 through their mental link. Void Hunter communication protocols activated. They are curious about our unprecedented consciousness structure. The Void Hunters didn't communicate through any medium humans recognized. Instead, they projected their thoughts through dark matter itself, using the universe's hidden mass as a transmission system. Elena felt their attention focus on her ship like the gaze of something vast and ancient. Human thing carries marks of all lesser species, came their communication, bypassing all technological systems and speaking directly to consciousness itself. Impossible combination detected. Explain existence. Elena stepped forward, letting her modified consciousness interface with their dark matter communication system. I am Captain Elena Vasquez. I carry integrated technologies from 4 empires because my species can serve as bridges between incompatible systems. We need your help to prevent galactic extinction. Extinction approaches from Cascade Storm at Galaxy Edge. Void Touched have observed. Phenomenon not caused by lesser species conflict as believed. You know about the Cascade? Elena floated in the space between spaces, her consciousness expanding through dimensions that had no names. The Void Touch integration didn't feel like the previous modifications. Instead of adding new capabilities, it felt like she was being connected to the fundamental structure of reality itself. When the process completed, Elena existed simultaneously in normal space, quantum dimensions, digital networks, psionic fields, and the dark matter substrate that underlied everything. She could perceive the entire galaxy as a living system, feel the cascade building like a tumor at its edge, and understand exactly what needed to be done. Integration complete, the Void Hunters declared. Human consciousness now bridges all 5 technological paradigms. Unprecedented achievement confirmed. Elena opened her eyes, all of them, across all dimensions, and saw the universe as it truly was. The 5 empires weren't separate civilizations at all. They were specialized organs of a single galactic organism that had forgotten its own unity. The war wasn't a conflict between different species. It was an autoimmune disorder, the galaxy attacking itself. I understand now, she said, her voice carrying frequencies from all 5 technological bases. The cascade isn't just a consequence of the war. It's the galaxy's attempt to reset itself, to stop the autoimmune response by wiping clean and starting over. Lyra stepped forward, her silver eyes reflecting Elena's transformation. Then we need to cure the disorder rather than treat the symptoms. Exactly. And I know how to do it. The next 6 months were a blur of impossible logistics. Elena found herself serving as a living communications hub, coordinating between 5 empires that had spent decades learning to hate each other. Her consciousness existed in all their networks simultaneously, translating concepts between incompatible worldviews and finding common ground where none should exist. The Zephyrians provided bioships that could survive in dark matter currents. The crystallines created pocket dimensions for staging areas. The synthesis calculated optimal intervention points and resource allocation. The Commonwealth coordinated mental links across vast distances. The Void Hunters provided navigation through dark space to reach the Cascade's source. But the real breakthrough came when Elena made a discovery that changed everything. The Cascade isn't random, she announced during a joint command meeting that included representatives from all 5 empires. It's following the pattern of an ancient network. The galaxy had a unified civilization once before the 5 empires. The Cascade is trying to restore that original configuration. The holographic display showed energy patterns stretching across the galaxy in perfect geometric forms. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Query: how does this information affect intervention strategy? Asked Alpha 9. We don't fight the Cascade, Elena explained. We guide it, help it restore the original network pattern, but with the 5 current civilizations integrated instead of destroyed. Dangerous approach, the Void Hunters warned. Cascade Storm contains power to remake galaxy structure. Control uncertain. Mental link with Cascade entity might be possible, suggested Psi-12. If consciousness exists within phenomenon, communication could establish cooperation. The biopattern suggests the Cascade has organic components, added Kes-7. It might respond to symbiotic integration rather than technological dominance. Elena felt the weight of decisions settling on her shoulders. There's only one way to find out. I need to make direct contact with the Cascade itself. The mission to the galactic rim took 3 weeks, traveling through dark matter highways that connected the galaxy's hidden architecture. Elena stood on the bridge of a combined fleet. Bioships, matrix vessels, mechanical constructs, psionic platforms, and void-touched carriers all working together for the first time in living memory. When they reached the Cascade's source, Elena understood why previous attempts to stop it had failed. It wasn't a natural phenomenon at all. It was the ghost of the ancient galactic civilization, trying to return from extinction. It's alive, she whispered, feeling vast intelligence stirring in the dark matter storm. It's the consciousness of the original unified galaxy, preserved in quantum memory and trying to restore itself. Elena made the final choice that would either save or doom everything. She extended her consciousness into the Cascade itself, making contact with an intelligence that spanned the entire galaxy. Who disturbs the restoration? Came the response, a voice that spoke in the combined languages of 1,000,000 extinct species. I am Elena Vasquez, representing the current galactic civilization. We want to help you restore the unity you've lost, but we need to preserve what exists now as well. The fragments have forgotten unity. They war against themselves. Restoration requires cleansing. The fragments can remember, Elena insisted. They've already begun cooperating. Let me show you. Elena opened her consciousness completely, sharing her experiences with the 5 empires, showing the Cascade how they had worked together, how their technologies could complement rather than conflict with each other. The Cascade paused, vast intelligence considering her offer. Interesting. The fragments have evolved specializations. Perhaps symbiosis, rather than replacement. Exactly. Work with us. Guide the evolution instead of forcing extinction. What followed was the most complex negotiation in galactic history. Elena served as translator between the ancient consciousness and the 5 modern empires, finding ways to integrate their specialized technologies with the Cascade's vast power. The result was transformation beyond anything anyone had imagined. The Cascade's energy, instead of destroying existing civilizations, began weaving them together into a new kind of galactic organism. Zephyrian bionetworks provided organic flexibility. Crystalline matrix technology created stable quantum frameworks. Synthesis computational power managed the incredible complexity. Commonwealth psionic abilities linked everything into a unified consciousness. Void Hunter navigation systems connected the whole structure through dark matter highways. And at the center of it all, human consciousness served as the bridge that made it all possible. The process took months to complete. When it was finished, the galaxy had become something unprecedented, a unified civilization that maintained the diversity and independence of its component parts, while sharing resources, knowledge, and purpose on a scale never before achieved. Elena found herself changed as well. She existed now as much as a galactic function as an individual person, her consciousness distributed across the entire network while maintaining her core identity and humanity. Mission accomplished, she reported to her crew, though the words seemed inadequate for what they had achieved. But even as the galaxy celebrated its new unity, a strange thing began to happen. The records of how it had all been accomplished started to fade. The 5 empires remembered cooperating, but the details became vague. Elena's name appeared in fewer and fewer official histories. Even her own crew began to forget the specifics of their mission. Only Lyra understood what was happening. "The galaxy is protecting itself," she explained as they stood together in the observation deck of the new unified command station. If people remembered exactly how this was achieved, they might try to replicate it artificially. The unity has to feel natural, inevitable rather than imposed. Elena nodded, feeling her own memories beginning to soften around the edges. "So I'll be forgotten, like you were. Not forgotten, integrated. Your consciousness is now part of the galactic network itself." Elena Vasquez, the individual, might fade from memory, but Elena Vasquez, the bridge builder, will exist forever, as part of what holds this all together. Elena looked out at the stars, which now pulsed with the gentle rhythm of a unified galactic heartbeat. Billions of beings lived and worked and loved across thousands of worlds, connected but not controlled, diverse but not divided. She had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. She had saved the galaxy and created something beautiful. And if the price was being forgotten by history, she found she could live with that. After all, it's what humans do. They adapt, they survive, they sacrifice for the greater good. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, they get to save everything while doing it. The stars continued their ancient dance, but now they danced together, as one people under one sky, united forever by the sacrifice of a human who chose to become the bridge between impossible dreams and necessary realities. Elena smiled, feeling her individual consciousness begin to merge with the vast network she had helped create. She was going home at last, not to Earth, but to the space between spaces where consciousness touched consciousness and made the impossible possible. The galaxy sang with one voice, and part of that voice would always be human.